In this week's episode of Adaptation, Deborah sits down with literary agent Jillian Davis to discuss writing, rejection, and why LA's literary community is so great.
Hello. I can't hear you for some reason. Let me just try. Nope. Audio. Okay, I'm gonna figure this out. I got it. Hello.
Hello, it's so nice to see you. I was actually going to say that I felt so silly. I didn't even know when I had asked you to initially do this that you had your own podcast. I was like, oh my God, I should just ask you all the podcast questions.
You can.
So you and your co-host, tell me her name?
Yolanda.
Yolanda started, it's called the Pemberley Podcast, right? And started in 2016?
Yep.
And like 243 episodes, did I count that right?
Probably.
And you covered Jane Austen adaptations and
Bridgerton, yes.
plus Bridgerton.
We were both obsessed with a web series called The Lizzie Bennet Diaries, which was a vlog adaptation of Pride and Prejudice.
Can you explain what the Lizzie Bennet Diaries were and what a vlog is?
This was like back in like 2012, 2013 when YouTube was like a really new frontier. And so a vlog was like, it's kind of silly to think it was like a very early iteration of what a lot of like TikTok and Instagram influencers do now, which is just sitting and talking to the camera. This is kind of like what a vlog was back in the day. I mean, it's a video blog, like.
Right. I was trying to remember what the log was. Like,
yeah, video blog.
What is it, if you can encapsulate about, we'll say Jane Austen, her stories that are so perfect for adaptations?
Well, the sort of first obvious answer is that they're very popular and they're in the public domain. So, I mean, I feel like usually something that's been a hit, like, you know, Hollywood, and we'll talk about this more, I'm sure, that like Hollywood really hates to take big swings on anything creative. So when you have this piece of IP that is consistently a bestseller after hundreds of years, I think it feels like a really safe bet that even if you made a bad version of a good book, people would still come to see it. Then I feel like before that, like, why is Jane Austen so great for adaptation? Before that comes like, well, why is she so popular and why are her books so enduring? And for the time, her books were very revolutionary because first of all, there weren't a ton of female authors in her time. There weren't zero. There was a really big, you know, Gothic movement in literature at her time. But for the most part, a lot of books for women were not written by women. They were actually known commonly as conduct literature, which was kind of like basically literature where a young lady was meant to learn her lesson.
Conduct literature, that is a nasty term.
It's really nasty, and it's even nastier when you think about the fact that it's probably still a very pervasive genre today, but we wouldn't even think of it that way. Like, we wouldn't even call it that. But Jane Austen was the first popular female author to write about women, and some of them did what their parents told them to, some of them didn't. Like, they were usually pretty messy, and even though a lot of our sort of social graces today are different from then, people are largely the same 200, 2,000 years later. Like, we're not that different, you know, like marriage is still very important to people. Fitting in is very important to people. What people think of you is still very important to us. And she really told those stories from like a female point of view. I also would like to think that speaks to the power of romance novels, which I am like, that's kind of like my main genre as like a personal reader. And it's really common in romance novel series that like, it's, you know, you have a number of books in the series and it's usually about like a group of friends or a family or whatever. And like each member of the family or each friend gets their own book. They get their own love stories. And so someone who might be a main character in one book will be supporting cast in another one. And so you kind of get to find your favorite stories and your favorite tropes that way. And they have brought that format to Bridgerton. It's kind of funny to me hearing Hollywood people in these rooms talk about this form of storytelling like Bridgerton, because I'm like, it's all the romance novel books, it's all the series, it's all of them. But Bridgerton made it popular for television, and I think Shonda made that popular for television.
You can understand that if you have IP that is proven to be popular, that is very appealing to everybody across the board.
Mhm.
But how do you get something original made when everybody's scared to take a risk on something original? And I was speaking to the producer, Stephen Nemeth. We were, it was kind of this like chicken before the egg thing where it was, we could name all of these films that took these great big risks, or TV shows, right? And I just immediately think right now, anyway, off the top of my head, of Stranger Things. And Stranger Things, right, in the 80s, and it still skews close enough to present day. Like, it obviously didn't need a budget like a Bridgerton, but
Yeah.
there's still a lot of period stuff in there.
Yeah.
And I can't even imagine what they had to go through to get approval to make that show. And then it's wildly popular. And so now probably 80s things placed in the 80s have, an easier road to development.
I also like very firmly believe people don't know what they want until they get it, until it is presented to them, because I've looked at a lot of lists of mandates for, what a streamer is looking for, what a studio is looking for, and I've looked at that list and been like, "Ugh, I have exactly what you're looking for. What do you think?" And they're like, "No, it's not like this enough. It's not like that enough." But then I've also seen producers option like unpublished manuscripts because it just like checked their boxes. It is crazy to me that like, something that is a manuscript, like publishing hasn't even said yes to it, could have like hold more weight than if it had been a spec script.
So a spec script meaning that a screenwriter just writes a script with nothing attached, nobody attached, for
Mhm.
no reason other than they just, writers are insane. And then they try and sell it. Is that a
Yes.
spec?
Yeah, like I mean, I'm talking about a manuscript, which is just like someone decided to do that but write a book. But like instead of writing a whole book, they just wrote the feature version of that or the pilot version of that. And you would think that that would be an easier sell because there's not as much to read. I think Hollywood wants someone else to have said yes to it first. And you get to say, based on this book.
I actually always see what I'm writing as I'm writing, and I'm not thinking of it for a different medium, but I do always see it. So to me, it's like always a dream to have that translate to screen. But also, I do wonder if, to your point, a lot of writers know, like Hollywood is obsessed with IP right now. If writers are writing books specifically to be made for film and television, is that a thing?
A lot of my clients are LA based because they initially came here to, break into screenwriting in some capacity, and through no fault of their own, I mean, the system has just been completely upended. The entire business model has changed. People are getting laid off every single week. It's kind of a scary time. And it is crazy, but it is also true. Unless like you have some crazy connections or you do have that like crazy spec script that is exactly what they're looking for. I think in a lot of cases, your IP, your idea, your story has a better shot of getting made if it's a book first. There's a part of me that's like, this can't be the way forever because that's the harder thing to do. If I had to pick a thing that's the hardest thing to write, I would say it's a book because
And a totally different skill set.
honestly, like there are people who are excellent, like amazing authors who like their scripts are like, nah, or people who have like amazing screenwriting skills and their books, I'm just like, oh, this didn't feel like it was written by the same person. It's crazy that like you have to do the harder thing first, which is writing the book and getting it published.
Which is
For
so
me. So you just get it published.
all of these industries, I think it's a really interesting time because they've all become unsustainable. So they've all had to change their models, but nobody's figured it out yet because it is so hard. And there are so many elements to doing any one of these things. And it's really hard to have the skills as an independent person to do them all well and to set yourself up for success. Speaking of which, Your career has taken such an interesting turn recently. So full disclosure, we were introduced by a mutual friend, and I was looking for a literary fiction agent, because my books prior to my new one are nonfiction. And we met, and you're now my agent.
Yes.
Um,
I was wondering if like the people knew that like, surprise, you're my client, I'm your agent. We know each other this way.
yeah, I was just burying the lead. You can tell the story better than I, obviously, but last year and now you're a book agent and you can tell the story.
I was working at a production company for several years that, you know, the kind of main focus was to adapt romance novels into TV film. And that job ended, as so many jobs do end. And I was looking for my next thing. It's funny, like Kaplan Stahler didn't feel like a strategic move at the time, but it certainly ended up being that for me. I started working there 2 weeks before the writers' strike hit. I really took that 6 months to think about what is it that I really want to do after this. One of my favorite parts of working at that production company was the book to TV film adaptation of it all. Like, I love books. And I also love movies and shows, and I love it when those two things come together. And so Kaplan Stahler has been a boutique TV lit agency for over 40 years, and that's mostly what they've done. So I basically went to our CFO and I was like, would Kaplan Stahler ever do like a book department? And he was intrigued, but was also like, what would that even look like? What does the money look like? What is that? And so I spent a lot of 2024 doing my research and talking to other lit agents, just asking like what do you do? Like, what is a typical like money dollar amount on this or commission on that? I think that publishing and TV, like, you know, entertainment, Hollywood have become very intertwined, but they really are. I mean, they're literally like on different sides of the country, like they're hubs. And there's not a lot of people that's a go-between the two of them. It's really like a lot of book scouts just being like, people seem to like this one. I don't really know what a book scout does. I don't want to undermine what they do.
That's how they all sound.
What we all do is important.
All of my publishing experience has been in New York. And so that was so thrilling to me last summer when I was out in LA before we met, even on my book tour, and meeting all of these young women writers, novelists, fiction, nonfiction, screenwriters, comic book writers. And there was no difference between anybody. There was no difference between what they were writing. There was no one is better than the other. This makes you smarter. Why are you going to Hollywood? That's such a sellout. It's so lame. To me, it made so much sense to break down those barriers of book to TV to film, comic books, whatever it is, articles, because it's all storytelling.
I'm really happy that you said that, and I'm glad that you've been taken with the LA literary scene, because I'm also in it and I know LA's reputation. Reading and books and LA like are not really thrown in the same sentence together, but it has become, in my opinion, a very literary city. There, like, I am never hurting for events to go to. Like, so many independent bookstores have popped up over the last 5 years, and they all want to be community oriented. They all want to be a safe space for people. Like you said, like, it doesn't matter if you like wrote a comic book or a nonfiction book or a poetry book. Like, it like doesn't matter what you wrote. It matters that you created something. And so that's kind of like a lot of my my North Star on a lot of things that I do, is like, this should be fun. Like, if you're like panicking and if you're like feeling bad about yourself because of like a thing that you're doing or a group that you're going to, leave that thing. Like, don't do it. You don't have to.
One of the most important things that you can build for yourself to survive that, because it is stressful, right? If it's like what you're spending your life doing and you're counting on for money, and also like psychologically because you want to be a success, building a community around yourself and building a community that gets you and that's there for you and that's collaborative and in any sense of that word. And to me, it's such a different attitude than when I grew up, and I grew up on stage and it was just cutthroat. And I don't even think the word community existed in the late 80s. It was just out for yourself and that's it. Because if you're not out for yourself, you're going to be too soft. And that other girl who's barely 5'2" with brown hair and hazel eyes and a belting voice is going to fucking get the role and you're going to lose out. And it's so amazing now for me to still be in the entertainment world in a much healthier way.
I had a thought, but it left my brain. But it's because I was listening and I was like, yeah, she's right. That is what this is.
What would you say is your biggest lesson that you've learned in those 8 months about the book to screen process?
Speaking of the community, I think that's sort of my biggest lesson is, in Hollywood, Hollywood can't, there's a lot of kumbaya and there's a lot of community out here and it can be really nice. But in terms of Hollywood, in terms of getting in rooms with people that get your stuff made, it still feels very difficult to reach, very inaccessible. I'm sure it's still the same in publishing. I just haven't gotten there yet, but I'm surprised at how many people who I've never met and I'm like, hi, it's me. I'm starting a department out here, have been like, yeah, send that manuscript, send it over. I'd love to read it. Then you get the no. But it's nice that I'm not getting the no, I won't read it. It's just the no, this isn't right for me. And then a couple yeses. And that's been a very pleasant surprise.
Are you specifically picking up manuscripts and or clients with the idea of publishing and adaptation, or yeah?
I have such a TV film brain. Even before I did this professionally, I've read many books even as a teenager thinking I could see them, I kind of see it as a movie. So it's not really a skill set thing. That's a my brain thing. I kind of see everything as a movie. But it's also I'm looking to get the book published first. And like I said, people don't know what they want. I have to show them what they want. That's sort of how I see my job is I know you didn't think you were looking for this, but you actually are. And this is a great book. And I think that a lot of readers that would like this because I liked this.
I'm wondering if you can talk about any adaptations that you love that either kind of change the point of view of the protagonist or really change the protagonist, whether it's a gender, something so dramatically that really worked.
If you have read the Bridgerton books, they're very different from the show. In the Jane Austen sphere, what I was kind of thinking of when I was said that was the movie Clueless.
I actually never knew that I never knew that.
So there you go. No, that's a perfect example because it's Emma. It's this very spoiled, well-to-do girl who wants to sort of meddle in people's love lives and falls in love herself with someone unexpected. And they changed all the names and it wasn't marketed as a Jane Austen adaptation. That wasn't the sell. It had some stars in it, Alicia Silverstein and others. Paul Rudd was her love interest in that. And
he was her brother also.
Her ex-stepbrother, which, I mean, look, in my opinion, for fictional love stories, there are people outside of your family and your stepfamily. It's perhaps not that hard to find someone who's not an ex-stepbrother to fall in love with. Future filmmakers, can we have love interests that are not step siblings?
Especially if they're going to look like Paul Rudd, because that's going to make it really hard.
That's really mean because it's how do you resist Paul Rudd?
No, I don't blame you.
And by the way, I love it in a movie when actors have such good chemistry that you have to ignore how messed up either their relationship is or I think about You've Got Mail. I think about the fact that I'll eat that movie up with a spoon, but it's about a guy who literally put this woman out of business. She had to watch ghosts of her and her mother twirling in the empty store because he put her out of business. And they still fell in, and he lied to her about knowing all her secrets, and they still fell in love.
Wait, this is there's a theme of coma trauma films where the woman is in a coma and then she wakes up. She's like, I love this man that I've never seen before. What
film is that?
There are more than one. Or,
Snow White.
Dates, right? Snow White, maybe that's the OG, or 50 First Dates.
50 First Dates, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
She didn't go into a coma, but she doesn't have long-term memory. Um, and he's like, "Oh, I love you." I mean, what, we could go.
Humans are pretty problematic. Anyway, back to Clueless. No, I mean, that's when you literally just learned that that was a Jane Austen adaptation. By not marketing it as, like, come see this Jane Austen movie, it sort of like proves the universality of her themes and of her stories because, like, they didn't have to say, come see this Jane Austen movie. They just made it and set it at Beverly Hills High School in the 90s. And it was just a great sort of like hijinksy rom-com. When you look at the description of what something's about, I'm like, I probably wouldn't be into that based on the description. But when the writing is good, it doesn't matter that you're like not into that thing. Like when the writing is good, it's good.
To that, there are books where the writing is terrible and they've been turned into a like knockout, knockdown, super successful movie. So, what do you think it is about a book? Like, what is that thing that all of a sudden you can look at and go, "Oh, this would make a good movie"?
That's such a secret sauce that it's hard to describe. It's like I don't know if it's possible to look for one thing because I agree with you. I've read books that the writing is terrible. It sounds like a deranged teenager texting her friends. New York Times bestseller. Ultimately, I think the best stuff is about how it makes you feel, right? And I think like if a book can move you to the point of like having strong feelings of like catharsis or joy or sadness, that's a big deal. That's a really big deal to come across something that makes you feel.
That reminds me of something that I will tell you that I don't know if I will put it on the podcast. But when I first moved to LA from New York and I couldn't get a job, my roommate at the time, he's like, "You're a great writer. And my friend works in porn. So have you ever considered writing porn?" And I was like, "Yeah, no, never. I didn't even know. Is it written? Who know? I don't know." And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Do you want to talk to him?" So I'm like, "Yes, of course." And I was working on these scripts. And I asked him at some point, I was like, "How do I know if this is a good porn script?" And he said, "You know, if it makes you excited."
Wow.
So that made me think of that.
So, just a side note, can this be your next book? Like, can you please write about your time writing porn scripts? I love that you got writing advice from this guy who told you to write porn scripts, and it's like whatever excites you.
If you're reading something and it gets you off, is what I believe he actually said,
Yes.
chances are you're not going to be the only one.
It's true. And, I think, hopefully there are some writers out there listening to this. And I think a lot of people write what they think is going to be popular. And I mean, hey, sometimes it is, but sometimes it isn't. And I think my advice is always like, write from the heart.
The writing process takes so long that if something's popular now, by the time you finish your book, chances are that's not going to be popular anymore. And
Yeah.
so,
Or it's
things that are in the zeitgeist, I don't
I
know.
think it's a way for people to avoid writing their truth, if I may. Like, and not every book is about like a memoir on someone's truth or anything like that. Like a lot of people write stories that are very different from what you would think they'd be into based on meeting them.
What is your favorite book adaptation of all time?
I'm gonna sound like I only watch Jane Austen. Like if it's not like connected to Jane Austen, I don't watch it. I know I'm making myself sound this way, but like I do. Like my truth is that I think like overall classic favorite is the 2005 Pride and Prejudice. But I will say, they made a new Emma movie in 2020. I guess it's not that new now. It stars Anya Taylor-Joy, directed by Autumn de Wilde, and it's gorgeous and it's perfect. And I've heard a lot of like non-Jane Austen people say they hate that movie because it doesn't really like hold your hand. It doesn't really explain things to you. You kind of have to know it. I think I also like rewatching adaptations because I always find new moments and new things to take away, like the older I get and the more I watch it and the more life changes.
Also, her daughter's band is one of my favorite.
Really? I know her, I mean, because I'm such a psycho and I've stalked her online, I know that her daughter is an Arrow, right?
Arrow has the band Starcrawler,
Okay.
which is, I'll send you a video when we get off. It's one of my all-time favorite music videos. And she and her friends, I think they're all friends from like high school, if not middle school in LA, are amazing.
That almost sounds like the modern LA counterpart of like your like kind of like acting, showbiz, performing arts upbringing.
Yeah, kind of. If my mom had been a famous
Photographer of
photographer.
bands and on tour and stuff. Yeah.
And if I was a 6'2", 92-pound blonde, just a few small differences between us.
Just a few.
And then what about a book that hasn't been adapted yet that you really want to see?
I'm sure this is going to come as a huge shock to people based on my obsession with Jane Austen, but I loved a bunch of princess. It was a bunch of princess stuff before it was Jane Austen. It's called Princess Academy by Shannon Hale, kind of like 1800s vibe. And this community lives up in the mountains, and the main girl is like too small to work in the quarry, and so she feels really left out. And then the royal officials come to their town one day and is like, the prince needs a wife and the new queen will come from Mount Escol. So they have to start a little academy to like teach the girls. You know, it's got a good message. Like it's kind of like not about getting married to the prince. Like it's about like their sisterhood, their like whatever. And so I just would love to see that get made into like a movie.
You think you'd want to produce?
Agents can't really produce, so like that's not really something that I'll be doing for the foreseeable future. But like being an agent is not inherently a very creative job, but I'm kind of a very creative person, and I kind of just like love being in this like book world, and so I like doing this right now.
But also, it sounds, I don't know, the way that you talk about it, it sounds very creative because you have to see these manuscripts that, like you said earlier, may not even really be, they may be completed, but they may need work. And you have to have the vision to see what needs work and how to help the writer implement what's needed to make it shine, to then take it out and to know what people want when they don't know what they want. Like it does sound very creative to me.
I mean, yeah, I guess in some ways, like you have to like speak writer. Like you've got to know what has worked. Like it's important to know the books out there that are similar to this that like have worked, and like not how to make it the same, but how to make people think of that book and its success and all the money it made, like when they're reading your book.
Because those comps are super important.
Comps are really important, yeah.
I never realized that until I started writing books, how important it was to say, it's just like this, but in this way it's different, which is why there's space for it on the shelf.
I ask for the most part for submissions on Query Tracker. There's like a couple of questions that I have people answer that might seem kind of inane and kind of annoying, but I do like seeing like what people are thinking. And one of the questions that it asks people is like, why this book, basically? Like, why do you like it? And actually, this is a PSA to anyone who might query me in the future. Don't say, because I'm really passionate about it and I just really wanted to write it. It's, I think, important to find the universality in your story. And that's what I'm asking for. I'm asking you to tell me like what I'm meant to feel. And if you can't articulate that, then you probably didn't articulate that in your book. Sorry.
I think all those things are true at once, right? Like you can write from your heart, but if you do want a career as a writer, in the same way that I would imagine you can make ceramics from your heart, but if the mug that you make has holes in it, it's probably not going to be universally loved. So you do have to find the commercial value in whatever it is you're making.
Yeah, because the other side of this is a business. Like without the success of certain books, there's no publishing house for you to submit your book to.
You just go and write porn.
Oh my goodness. Don't ask for your like backup life. Don't like aim for your second choice story or dream or whatever. Like you're probably going to get rejected for your second choice thing anyway, so you may as well ask for the thing you really want.
Wow, that's like my favorite piece of advice right there. You're going to get rejected anyway, so you might as well get rejected for the real thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you get rejected for the real thing, you keep doing it, because there's not like one person who's in charge of what gets published or what gets made or what people like, you know? Like that's, I encourage, you know, it's not for everyone, but I encourage people to try or like dabble in indie publishing, because you never know, like people are able to find their people, you know? Like Colleen Hoover started self-publishing her stuff and she was like an overnight sensation. She was huge before Book Talk was huge, you know? And it's like, her books aren't my favorite books, but like, that's kind of where I'm like, what do I know? Like tons of people love her stuff.
And I think that circles back to having a community that can support you and understand the rejection after rejection after rejection, because whatever they're doing is similar. Their scores are getting rejected, their choreography is getting rejected, their designs getting rejected. When you have community who's like, you can just cry about it and laugh about it and scream about it with, you can go on the next day and do it again, because that's just part of the deal.
It's going to be a lot of no's. It's going to be mostly no's, but it's not going to be all no's. And then it's one thing to like talk about rejection on a podcast and be like, just ignore it, just push past it. But you know, you could have a whole other episode dedicated to rejection. Are you making a rejection episode?
I am. I'm making a rejection note.
Have a whole rejection series.
And then everybody could read their most favorite rejection note. Will be called the rejects.
Yes.
We just did it.
We just did it. We just brainstormed a new idea that's going to kill. This was so fun.
Thanks for being my guest today on Adaptation.
Of course. Thank you for having me. Maybe I was too honest. Oh well, that's me. All right.
Bye.